And that's my cue. So good morning, everyone. Senator the Honorable Randall Mitchell, Minister of Tourism, Culture and the Arts, and Acting Minister of Sport and Community Development. Senator the Honorable Hassel Backus, Minister of Digital Transformation. Mr. Nelson Christian Stokes, PhD, Founder and Executive Chairman of NCS Enterprises, and our keynote speaker, Mr. Brian Lewis, President of the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee, Ms. Diane Henderson, Vice President of the TTOC, and other members of the board of the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee, distinguished members of our two panels for today's conference, specially invited guests and other participants, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nicole Duke Westfield, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to our 7th Sport Industry Conference, and actually our second to be held virtually. And hopefully, this will be our last in this format. While this conference is about going digital, I am sure you would agree with me that we would welcome the opportunity to meet face-to-face once again. And who knows, maybe the next venue for this kind of meeting may be in the Metaverse. Our theme today is on the path of digital transformation, a business imperative in the time of coronavirus. Without a doubt, the COVID-19 pandemic has exposed the gaps in our societies insofar as our digital readiness, but also has identified tremendous opportunities where we can leverage digital transformation to enable solutions to many of our challenges. I cannot help but recall the words of our Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, in April 2020, when he chaired the first meeting of the Road to Recovery Committee, where he said, when we come out of this COVID experience, it would be a huge failure if we go back to doing things we used to before, or being what we used to be before. While we may all want to reclaim aspects of our life before COVID, I am sure you will agree with me that the Prime Minister's words cannot be lost on us. Through today's conference, the TTOC has provided a great opportunity for us to explore some of these themes, new ideas and approaches to help our communities thrive in the digital transformation. But you didn't come here to hear me, so allow me to introduce Mr. Brian Lewis, President of the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee and the Commonwealth Games Association, to share his own thoughts on today's conference and what we'd like to achieve. Brian?
Good morning, everyone. Senator Randall Mitchell, Senator Hassel Backus, we're deeply appreciative of you both taking time from your busy schedule to contribute a very important conversation and discussion that is much needed. To our keynote speaker, Dr. Nelson Christian Stokes, more famously known, although he's a very established and eminent entrepreneur and cryptocurrency and NFT and all of those things, he is more famously known as one of the original Jamaica Cool Runnings bobsled athletes. So he brings a significant background. Vice President Dan Henderson of the TTOC, Secretary General, and not other members of the executive, distinguished panelists. This is an exciting stage that Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean, and let me say the Americas, because I've noted to everyone that we have people from the Caribbean attending and our colleagues in Central America and South America. So we have Spanish speakers, we have English speakers, we have French and Dutch speakers. So even though they may be good in English, I know that they constantly tell me when I talk too fast, they can't understand what I'm saying. So please sit down. So I have to do that. But the importance of today in the context of where we are post COVID-19 is that from a business of sport perspective, where since we established this conference 7 years ago, this is the 7th edition, it has focused on the entrepreneurial an innovative aspect of the business of sport, which at times goes against the grain of the traditional conservative thinking sports leaders and sports administrators. And the reality that metaverse, digital analytics, digital NFTs, different ways of generating revenue, digital governance are all important aspects. And the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee, we believe that if the sport ecosystem in the Caribbean, the Americas, and Trinidad and Tobago, if they don't embrace digital transformation, sport will fall further behind. So on that note, I look forward to the contributions of everyone, including the senators. So thank you very much. Welcome and have a great day. Be interactive, use the chat, ask questions, and let's make change happen for the benefit of the youth and young people involved in sport.
Thank you very much, Brian. And really, I really like the way that you ended in terms of make change happen. And I look forward to really hosting conversations, moderating conversations where we can really explore some of those concepts in the context of digital transformation. Our next speaker we know as the Minister of Tourism, Culture and the Arts, Senator the Honorable Randall Mitchell. But today he's also wearing the hat of the Minister of Sport and Community Development, as Minister Kaju is out of the country. I now invite the Honorable Minister to share some of his remarks with us. Minister Mitchell.
Thank you very much, Ms. Westfield. Let me start off by acknowledging Senator the Honorable Hassel Bacchus, my cabinet colleague, Minister of Digital Transformation, Mr. Brian Lewis, President of the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee and Commonwealth Games, and other representatives from that organization, Dr. Nelson Chris Stokes, Founder and Executive Chairman of NCS Enterprises, all panelists, specially invited guests, members of the media, good morning. As Acting Minister of Sport and Community Development, let me first begin by commending the TTOC on their 7th edition of the Sports Industry Conference to discuss a pertinent topic. While COVID-19 brought with it many challenges, it also created many opportunities. We have seen that digital adoption has taken a quantum leap to transform organizations and industries. Since the year 2000, we have accepted that we are in the digital age. With the advent of COVID-19, the adoption of digital technologies has sped up by several years, and these changes will be here for the long haul. The COVID-19 crisis has brought about years of change in the way all sectors do business. To stay competitive requires new strategies and practices. For example, during the pandemic, it has been found that consumers have moved dramatically towards online channels to stay abreast of events, and companies and industries have responded in turn. A most recent survey by We Are Social shows that Trinidad and Tobago's internet penetration stood at 77.3% of the total population at the start of 2022. The number of social media users in Trinidad and Tobago at the start of 2022 was equivalent to 78.4% of the total population. Kepios analysis reveals that social media users in Trinidad and Tobago increased by 161,000 between 2021 and 2022. According to research done by the Global Sport Innovation Center powered by Microsoft, the sports industry is a wide-reaching business that accounts for 1.5% to 2% of the world's GDP. The economic importance of the sports industry will keep increasing in the future, and they identify that technology will have a pivotal role as one of the first key drivers of growth by 2025. These statistics show that there is a market demand and economic benefit for the digital transformation of sport in Trinidad and Tobago. Now more than ever, we must adopt a digital-first strategy to match the needs of the sporting fraternity, fans, and athletes alike. If we look at social media, this gives fans or supporters a voice to like and share and even interact with their favorite sport, team, or athlete. We have seen how esports have grown internationally. Competitors from different leagues or teams face off in the same games that are popular with at-home gamers: Fortnite, League of Legends, Counter-Strike, Call of Duty, and Madden and NFL, to name a few. These gamers are watched and followed by millions of fans all over the world who tune in to TV or online. In addition, there are sporting apps that allow you to view sporting events that are streamed online. We have to work towards making the virtual experience the forefront of what we do. There is no doubt that technology has transformed and will continue to transform businesses across all industries, altering both the fan experience and the inner workings of organizations. The sports industry is undergoing rapid upheaval, and digital technology is unlocking unprecedented opportunities for growth. However, sports organizations need a digital overhaul to capitalize on those opportunities fully. Doing digital is not enough. We are now called upon to embed digital in every aspect of the business of sport, transforming people, processes, and technology. Of course, going through any organizational transformation is not to be taken lightly. But given the significant opportunities for sports organizations, the undertaking is well worth considering. At the Ministry of Sport and Community Development, this process of transformation has begun. The ministry has been exploring the digitization of the Elite Athlete Assistance Program and the grant funding application process for organizations and individuals in sport. The digitization of the Elite Athlete Assistance Program application process will benefit all high-performance athletes to simplify the process and make it more accessible to them, especially those national athletes based in foreign countries. The digitization of the grant funding application processes will be especially beneficial for entities in far-reaching communities, which may find it challenging to come into Port of Spain to process forms. We are working towards having these digital solutions implemented before the end of this fiscal year. The ministry is digitizing its registration process for clubs and sport-serving bodies. The registration drive will commence in March, and therefore we pivoted during these times and have and will continue to present to virtual races, competitions, conferences, panel discussions, capacity building courses, athlete welfare workshops, and information sharing meetings via virtual platforms. It is time that we reassess our digital priorities to support new business processes, adopt new working practices to boost digital transformation strategy, and most importantly, retool our skills and operations, especially for a post-pandemic world. We have learned as a country within our communities and as a sporting fraternity to not just live through or survive COVID-19, but to thrive and provide the opportunities for the people we serve, especially our athletes. Therefore, it is imperative that we re-examine traditional business processes and realign them to support the digital capabilities needed to achieve efficiencies and ensure that we equip ourselves with the digital skill set to propel the business of sport. Therefore, I endorse the discussions that are taking place at this conference and encourage you to channel these talks into action. It is relevant and critical as we move forward to a post-pandemic world and realign our strategies to effectively and efficiently serve our stakeholders. So, given those few words, I thank you sincerely for the opportunity to address you this morning. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you very much, Minister, for really grounding our conversation for the rest of this session, and for really opening the batting for us in that manner and giving us a sense of how the Ministry of Sport sees digital transformation, walking step and step with the development of sport. And I'm sure a lot of us, even those who are not directly involved in sport, would welcome any opportunity to see the elimination of forms in our public service, at least paper forms. So today's conversation is really a spotlight on digital transformation in a time of coronavirus. So who better to join us but the Minister of Digital Transformation, Senator the Honorable Hassel Backus, whose ministry is leading this charge to create a more enabling digital environment across our public service. I now invite the Minister to share some of his thoughts on enabling a digital economy through people-driven transformation. Senator.
Good morning, good morning. And let me, say thank you to everyone for the opportunity to be here. Obviously, the President and Vice President of the TTOC, Brian, I really thank you for this opportunity to address this large and growing audience. I was looking at the number of participants, and it continues to grow as we go. I know my cabinet colleague, I'm not sure if he'll be able to stay with us for much longer, but really inspiring words, and thank you very much for that. And of course, well, Dr. Stokes, you really don't need any introduction. It's really good to have you here with us, and I really welcome the opportunity. I do have a few slides that I would like to share, and I will, I'll do that now. And the reason why I want to share them is that I want to put a little slightly different spin on what we're talking about. So when we talk about digital transformation, a lot of the focus ends up on technology. And a lot of people ask, and they try to figure out whether or not technology really should be involved in sport. People talk about it as a sword and a shield. But just think about, the last sporting event that you viewed via this medium because of the pandemic. You're not live, you're viewing it online. And think about what stands out to you, the things that make you want to look at it that way, the things that you miss even when you're doing it live. And those things are really part of what the technology brings. You get to see the analysis, you see diagrams, you get up, it enhances the color commentary. But in this world of sport and transformation, when you start to apply technology to the sport itself, sometimes it works really, really well, and sometimes it doesn't. And I'll use two examples. Take the example of the swimming tech suits when they were created. World records were smashed by tremendous amounts. The technology was actually so good that they decided, look, let's outlaw this. So this is an example of technology that went awry. It changed the performance too much. The second example is the Predator boots. Think about this. All football boots in the world have changed significantly from the time when Brian was trying to play football, which was some time ago, to now. And all it took was one guy who used to play, and they said, listen, if we add a different way of making the top of this boot strike the ball, I think it will make a significant difference. It was somebody taking something that existed for a long time and say, listen, if we add this to this, it will work. That alone didn't make it work. What also made it work is that he found the right people. He was able to find the correct connections to get it done. And then he was able to get other people to join with him to promote it. Now, pretty much all football boots in the world are made based on that type of design. So it is technology being adapting something that exists. Now, you might wonder, well, what does that have to do with digital transformation? Friend of mine told me that in digital transformation, the digital is the easy part. The transformation is the hard part. And that transformation really involves, and that's what I'm talking about in this case, and I'll get to the digital part in a minute. But think about what happened in that case. It started with an idea. Even in the bad example, somebody had an idea, they looked at what it was, and the business part of it worked. And those things represented significant economic gains, not just for the individuals who created them, but for the companies who adopted that technology. The companies eventually started to try to innovate on that itself and found itself in competition with one another. And that even drove further technology. So this is an idea of how simple ideas, starting with simple people, if you put it in the right ecosystem and follow the right process, could get you to a successful place. Well, when we're talking about digital transformation, we're talking about really three things. It's four, but I include one in the last. You're talking about people, you're talking about processes, and you're talking about systems. The systems would include the technology itself, and in most cases, it involves some level of adaptation, change, or introduction of legislation. The law has to change to accommodate what you do. But the first two pillars are the more difficult: people and process. When we set out on the journey that we've set out on to make Trinidad and Tobago a digital society, and you heard the example that Senator Mitchell just gave about and the glee with which it was received, the removal of forms. Well, that's only one aspect of it. The digitization of things is one aspect. The digital transformation involves all three of these. So we have to, one, increase the digital IQ of our people. People must become more familiar and accustomed with technology, and the way we're going to do that is it involves training at a global level. We have to build trust. How many people here will buy things on eBay using electronic means, but you will not pay your utility bills locally using the same means? It has nothing to do with the ability to do it. It's about trust. In the process side, well, if you just digitize the forms, as Senator Mitchell said, and we leave the old process, it doesn't do anything, because all we've done is give you a different way to enter the form, and then you have to print it, walk with it, show the same thing to the people at the front desk. They have to take it, they stamp it, they put it somebody else has to put. That is not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is the end-to-end adaptation of implementation of technology, manipulating proper processes, and getting people to trust and use it. The systems part of it, which is the actual technology itself, is the easy part. It is a slave to the first two. When we talk about what is happening in the wider Caribbean, digital transformation is on the lips of everyone. I recently was at Coathead meeting with all the ministers that have to do with transformation and digital transformation. And it's interesting that all of us have the same challenges. What are the challenges? Well, we have some of them here. Capital is an easy one because you will never have enough money. But one of the things about digital anything is that it is cheaper than any other way. Digital government is cheaper than any other way to do it. And I am sure as you apply more and more of the digital transformation aspects of things into sport, you will find that it's not only more efficient, but cheaper. Voice in this case speaks to our ability to promote it. And that is why I want to thank the TTOC for this opportunity. It gives me the opportunity to speak to a different audience. Being able to say and promote what we're trying to do in the digital transformation space, the places to do that, that in itself is limited in a number of places. And I am grateful for this opportunity to do it here. When we talk about putting digital transformation into a sentence or a phrase, if you look it up on Google, you'll find a number of technical ways in which to describe it. This is how we've described it here. And I put this in common language for all of us to understand. And when we say we're dealing with digital transformation, we're talking about a new way to address end-to-end consumption and delivery of goods and services to customers using appropriate digital technology. So when we talk about end-to-end and a new way, just to take off on Senator Mitchell's example, What is really supposed to happen is you're supposed to be able to apply for whatever it is online. You're supposed to get a reply online. And if it is a service that you're supposed to receive, you're supposed to be able to receive it. And if you have to pay for it, you're supposed to be able to pay for it online. And so the delivery of goods and services, when you change the processes to deal with things end to end, and the people, in this case, customers, think about this. When we do what we do in the transformation space, people think that we only think about the end user. The end user is a focus, but it cannot be the only people that you think about. Why am I saying that? Think about the public service as an example. If we build processes and put in systems that deal with, on the people side, the citizenry as the only customer, we're going to have a problem. And I will tell you why. If you don't take into consideration as a customer of the same system, the people who are providing the service, then you're going to find that your systems are going to fail. So when we speak of customers in this case, we're not just talking about the people who are trying to use the services, but we're talking about the people who deliver them as well. All of that has to be taken into consideration as you adapt to digital processes from where you are. So the old processes that you use probably and more than likely will not work in a digital age because you're doing things differently. Digital transformation not only changes how you do things, but it also changes what you do. What are we doing in Trinidad and Tobago? And I guess people would ask about that. How are we trying to deal with what we're doing? We're trying to do digital transformation across 3 areas: digital society, digital government, digital economy. And the digital economy piece is relevant to this because it speaks across it. One of the things that we're creating is a developers hub. What is a developers hub? It is a place where people, these creative people that we have in Trinidad and Tobago, will be able to go and express themselves with other like-minded people to create applications, services, solve problems. All of that will end up because we are creating now an ecosystem that allows you to do that. You don't have to buy a server, you don't have to buy anything. Everything is available there for you with all the tools. Using the most modern in the world, you can use Azure stacks, AWS stacks, anything you want. It will be available and sitting there for you. Not only that, we've gone as far as to engage, and we do engage because this ministry is a partnering ministry with the private sector, civil society, but also our international partners who are bringing the markets to that. So it's not just like you're building something here, this is a really good idea, I wonder who is going to use it. The private sector here sees it because they will be involved. The international market sees it. So when you create that type of ecosystem, you start seeing how things work. My motto is, by Trinidad and Tobago, for Trinidad and Tobago and the world. By Trinidad and Tobago, for Trinidad and Tobago and the world. So we're tapping into the creative and the creative genius of our people, having them express themselves, having it work for the benefit of the people of Trinidad and Tobago and the rest of the world as well. It is a really unique way to look at it. It's something we need to do. Some of the challenges that we have, and if we put this into the sports perspective, you will understand this quite easily. When exam time comes around, all of a sudden all the athletes disappear because the parents tell them they have to stay home and study. Teachers saying, yeah, listen, all you have here to study book, just don't worry about that. Some of the policies that we've set do promote and would not allow for some of the transformational changes that we need to do to happen. Coaches, athletes, all of this has to fit into this digital ecosystem if you're looking at it from a sporting perspective. And so all of these people, all of these cohorts of people have to embrace what digital transformation and digital technology can do for them. And that requires education. So we have significant education programs where that is concerned. My last slide is this. And this might look like something that says, wait a minute, this is, you know, when you're born, and that is not what this is. This is simply how any idea could turn into something successful. The birth is just simply the idea itself. The nutrition side of it is, you know, how are we going to get this thing to work? You're figuring out how this idea could really turn into something better. You're putting yourself and your time and your effort into it. The education is really when you're trying to figure, well, you know, this is not working. How do I get this to work a little bit better? And eventually, you find something that works and you start to measure its performance. What makes it successful or not is its impact on society or its impact on its target audience. And once you get that working, well, the economic activity is simply a benefit at the end of it, because you would have gone through this process, built something that is suitable and fit for purpose. And then all you need now is the economics behind it to make it work. So I've touched on a number of things, and I promised the moderator that I would stay within time, and I have. I know in the panel discussions, we'll talk a lot more about the digital transformation aspect, but I wanted to put some context to it, to sport, and so that it fits within this particular audience in terms of what we want to say. But when we get to the panel discussion, we can talk a lot more about the foundations of digital transformation and where that will go. But that's what I have for you for this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Bacchus. And that is a lot of food for thought, really thought-provoking remarks, really building on what we want to talk about. And I know, I mean, you took me all the way back to my journalism days. I was sitting here just copiously taking notes off of your conversation. And it was really exciting to hear this story being outlined in the manner in which you have done, by TNT, for TNT and the world. Really inspiring. And I know that we currently have 142 participants on the seminar. I'm sure a lot of them will have questions for you and the other panelists as we get into it. So thank you very much. And I'd just like to add, ladies and gentlemen, that Minister Mitchell would have to leave us. He may have already exited the room because, of course, he is attending to Parliament today and has matters of state to address. So we really thank him for his presence and for his sharing earlier on. But we move on. So, Olympian, corporate executive, author, government advisor are just some of the titles Dr. Nelson Christian Stokes, Chris, as I saw in his bio, carries, but they still would not do justice to his list of achievements. Dr. Stokes is the founder and executive chairman of NCS Enterprises, a group of companies focusing on financial services, thought leadership, and sports administration. Under the NCS Financial Services Group, he offers fintech-powered alternative banking services to the unbanked and underbanked, with the goal of financial empowerment, capital formation, and economic mobility. A recipient of the Order of Distinction Officer Class, Jamaica's 6th highest national honor, Dr. Stokes is a 4-time Olympian of the Jamaican bobsled team, and he's currently chairman of the Jamaican Bobsled and Skeleton Federation. And if you want to know the real story of the rise of Jamaican bobsled and beyond, you only have to read, as portrayed in the movie of several years ago, you could only have to read his book, Cool Runnings and Beyond. Please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Nelson Christian Stokes, as he discusses accelerating your digital transformation. Failure is not an option.
Well, thank you very much, Madam. Yes, thank you very much, Madam Moderator. I hope you're hearing me well.
Yes, we are.
But I ask for the forgiveness and the permission of the senators, or one senator now, to allow me to break protocol to at first recognize our leader of us in the sporting community, Mr. Brian Lewis, president of the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee and the Commonwealth Games Association. Senator Mitchell has left, but I would also want to recognize and thank him for his contribution. Hassel Bacchus, Senator, the Honorable Hassel Bacchus, is very thought-provoking, substantive presentation. Thank you very much. Madam Moderator, Mrs. Nicole Duke Westfield. My friends, Annette, I'm sure you're in my voice's reach, the reach of my voice. My friends in the TTOC, whom I have had the pleasure of spending some time with in Beijing recently, all being swaddled in warm clothing and masked. It was good to see everyone. Fellow presenters, panelists, distinguished guests, attendees, all welcome. Quiero dar también un bienvenido especial a mis queridos hermanos de América Latina. Bienvenido. I cannot say how much of an honor it is for me to be here with you today. Let me first congratulate the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee and Commonwealth Games Association for continuing to set the pace for sports administration and good governance, visionary leadership, which comes at a price, President Lewis, in the Olympic movement generally and the Caribbean. And for this, I recognize your leadership, sir, and thank you for your invitation here. I will speak to you today on accelerating digital transformation. Failure is not an option. In fact, failure is a stepping stone, but that's another discussion. Many years ago, when I was chairman of my daughter's prep school, we used to hold cake sales in the parking lot of the school to raise funds for the school's track team. We would offer those companies that sponsor the team a space to advertise their products, on the uniforms and in the program. My office, I worked in a financial institution, was across the street from my daughter's school. And each afternoon, as I would walk dutifully towards cutting cakes and smiling and shaking hands and engaging in small talk with parents as they drove through collecting cash, giving out slices of cake, I would pass banking halls in that financial institution with people standing in line with their passbooks. It's actually a book with transaction slip filled out, waiting to process their transactions at a teller and having their books stuck under a machine, and it will be updated and a record printed in it before putting the book in their pocket and walking out with pride. Friends, this is not that long ago. Not that long ago. That book would be hid somewhere at home, the original data protection, under your socks drawer, under your mattress, and checked from time to time for hacking, which is to make sure that nobody had access to your account and changed the balance or written any notes in your book. It was beautifully simple. Much of what I just described has changed, not in its intent, that is to raise funds, engage sponsors and fans, or carry out transactions in a financial institution. But emerging digital and web-based technologies have changed both the consumption and the service preferences of persons with whom we must engage and the tools available for that engagement. Whatever changes we have seen in the use of technology as a platform in which our social, financial, and sporting interactions take place has been fast forwarded, as mentioned by Senator Mitchell, perhaps 10 years or more, so that by some estimates, as a result of social distancing and shelter at home protection protocols, we are now well advanced in the need to adopt digital transformation. In almost every sphere of our lives, therefore, we would be well advised not to resist. Resistance is futile, but rather to surf the wave of digital transformation. New technologies have brought new opportunities to amplify brand value, generate revenues, and manage operations. Let me share with you some of my more recent experiences in sport in particular. Although they may seem innovative, and this is important, they are actually really a matter of meeting your fans and supporters, business partners and sponsors where they are and engaging them in markets that exist or that are emerging. To do otherwise, it seems to me, it would be folly. There are many areas one could cover: wearables to monitor sport performance, simulators to, for example, get hundreds of runs on a new bobsleigh track before setting foot on ice, social media techniques for brand management development. But today I will focus on 3 areas: cryptocurrencies, NFTs, and the Metaverse. On cryptocurrency, in 2014, on confirming that our 2-man team, Jamaica's 2-man team at the time, had qualified for the games, a fan launched a crowdfunding campaign for the team on a site called Crowd Tilt. We figured we would need about $40,000 to get to the games. Within 24 hours, 48 hours, we'd actually raised about $115,000 on a site called on Crowd Tilt, another $40,000 on a site called Indigo, which I joined in, again, fan-driven, with the appropriate governance structures in place. This was in 2014. That's a lifetime ago. The Crowd Tilt CEO at the time said that this is the internet coming together. This is something that couldn't have happened 5 years ago. I'm saying to you, what is possible to know, what is possible now is way beyond even that. The learning that I took from that experience, though, was that among the contributors was a company called Dogecoin, which is it Dogcoin? Dogecoin, I mean, what is it? They created a group on Reddit, and it was a cryptocurrency company that raised $30,000 in contributions within a 24-hour period. They raised it in Dogecoin and converted it to Bitcoin. And by the way, just as a matter of interest, if we had held on to $30,000 worth of Bitcoin from 2014 to November 2021, when we started the Beijing Olympic qualification process without any idea of how we're going to fund it, that $30,000 from 2014 in 2021 would have been worth $3.7 million US. But that is another conversation as well. In 2021, when Lionel Messi transferred from Barcelona to PSG, part of his $41 million payment was in a PSG fan token. In other words, we need to understand this. A football club created its own digital currency that it used to engage fans. Let me move on to NFTs. In the middle of last fall, Jamaica bobsleigh led the way in raising funds as an Olympic sport through the sale of NFTs, or non-fungible tokens. We partnered with a company called Electric Token, a minority-owned tech company which itself partnered with a company called @NFT, which was founded by Jason Falovich and the Dallas Mavericks owner, Mark Cuban. The NFT drop featured limited edition digital artwork, which highlights the best of the Jamaica bobsleigh team brand: daring, courageousness, persistence, claiming your place on the earth regardless of where you're from, etc. The NFT drop initiative was the first of its kind, mixing in a range of authentic Jamaican digital and physical experiences from musicians and art lovers, with the purpose, and purpose is important in the NFT space, of getting the team to the Olympic Games. Deloitte Global predicts that NFTs for sports media will generate more than US $2 billion in transactions in 2022, about double the figure in 2021. How much of that do we have as a share in the Caribbean? We need to spend time on that. By the end of 2022, they expect that 4 to 5 million sports fans globally will have purchased or been gifted an NFT sports collectible. Brothers and sisters of the Caribbean and Latin America, we must deepen our understanding of and participation in this emerging market for fan engagement, IP brand image retention and monetization. The NBA in particular has a head start in the industry, but the combination of the high levels of artistic, musical, and sport achievement in the region, which I would say is unmatched by any other region in the world. As part of this whole thrust, we must look carefully at the intellectual rights issues. Remember, we're not just changing the name or it's PDF there for your digital. Intellectual rights, legal issues remain as valid as part of changing the process that both senators addressed so eloquently. We must address what IP means in the age of blockchain technology and online merchandising. So I've been involved, not observing, not wondering what they're doing, but involved in cryptocurrencies and NFTs as a Caribbean man, as a participant in sport and sport leadership and sport administration in the Caribbean. What does this mean for us? It's not an intellectual exercise. We have to get onto the field, get our feet dirty, get our hands dirty, make the mistakes, commit the errors, learn and get better. Our next frontier is the metaverse. According to Binance Academy, the metaverse is a concept of a persistent online 3D universe that combines multiple virtual spaces. You can think of it as a future iteration of the internet. The metaverse will allow users to work, meet, game, and socialize together in 3D spaces. Last November, many of you will remember, Barbados announced, I think it was December actually, the beginning of December, that it was opening an embassy in the metaverse, or plans to open an embassy in the metaverse. Although not required, cryptocurrencies can be a great fit for a metaverse. They allow for creating a digital economy with different types of utility tokens and virtual collectibles, that's the NFTs. The metaverse would also benefit for the use of crypto wallets such as MetaMask. Also, the blockchain technology, which has many, many uses, and I'm sure the Senator will speak some more about that, can provide transparent and reliable governance systems. And while we are busy improving things in sport itself, let us not lose sight of the importance of good governance, President Lewis, good governance in sport administration, and the role that technology can play. It doesn't mean putting your books in QuickBooks. The opportunities go well beyond that. Facebook's rebrand as Meta in late October last year thrust the concept of the metaverse into the mainstream. And the sports holders are certainly open to the possibilities. Sports rights holders are open to the possibilities in the space. Blockchain, metaverse-like applications already exist. You may wonder what this has to do with sport. Consider this. Nike, the apparel giant, has taken its first steps into the metaverse. It has filed 7 trademark applications as it prepares to enter the metaverse. As part of the application, the company indicated its intent to make and sell virtual branded sneakers and apparel. People familiar with Nike's plans said the space is a priority, not the next running shoes. For Nike, the metaverse is a priority for the brand, and consumers can expect to see more virtual rollouts in the months ahead. Friends, partnerships that pair major sporting properties like the International Cricket Council, which we need to take an interest in, with advocates of the metaverse are increasingly common. Indeed, if the expectations of Mark Zuckerberg et al. Materialize, the metaverse will revolutionize the way people consume sport. And we must not forget that sport, at the end of the day, commercially is an entertainment alternative. And it will raise the bar for fan engagement to unprecedented heights. A metaverse would, my friends, dissolve geographical and physical barriers to deliver better experience before, during, and after the games. You could actually run up with a cricketer, a West Indies bowler, as he's about to deliver make a delivery, sitting in Kingston, and the game is being played somewhere in Trinidad or Barbados or St. Lucia or Guyana, any of our storied cricket grounds. Participants in the Metaverse sports arena could take pictures with sports stars and chat with their heroes in real time, or attend virtual bar to interact with other fans without leaving their sofa. During matches, the audience can have a panoramic view of the whole game and choose to zoom into perspectives of their choice, allowing them to delve into a greater detail. Fans will pay more for that. It's a revenue opportunity. Additionally, the multi-view camera technology, fans could step into the virtual, onto the playing field, run with their athletes, make a tackle with their famous fans, with their favorite footballers. Friends, this is revolutionary, but more importantly, it is here. Are we in the game? You can quickly see that to stand still is to fall behind. The technology divide cannot be another source of the bifurcation of sport participation and fan engagement between the have and the have-nots. And I would add, President Lewis, between the dares, the dare to, and the dare nots. If I propose to this group, we are courageous in identifying trends and recognizing the importance of digital transformation. And in this regard, I give a nod to the government of Trinidad and Tobago with the creation of your ministry, that we have a chance to move purposefully into the future. And in this regard, Tambia, also, sorry, I slipped into my Spanish. In this regard also, colleagues, failure is not an option. Thank you very much.
All I can say at this point is, wow. Dr. Stokes, thank you so much for really putting everything in context. I think putting this discussion in context, bringing some of the key issues for us to consider. When you think about digital, as the ministers, as both ministers pointed out earlier, and then as you came in, you may wonder, okay, digital on one side, sport on the other, where's the nexus? And I don't know about the rest of the other participants, and I trust, I believe they would agree with me. I have seen that just knitting so closely together and so seamlessly and so well as our three speakers have started us off this morning. So Dr. Stokes, thank you very much. It was really thought-provoking, exciting, and heartwarming to hear where we can possibly be. Some people may tend to think of the Caribbean as this small place, an enclave, cut off maybe, or just not as deeply involved in the rest of the world as we might think. But yeah, we are here. It is here, and we have to get ready. And so thank you for those opening remarks. I want to get really quickly into the two panels. We have our panelists, and I know they're chomping at the bit to get in on the conversation and participate. I am also seeing a lot of questions and responses coming in the Q&A chat. So I just want to take the opportunity at this point to just give some little housekeeping as we get into the discussion. We ask that everyone keep their systems on mute. You can put your questions. In fact, please put your questions in the Q&A chat box so we can get to them smoothly. And we will relay as the conversation progresses. If there are particular questions that you may have for a specific speaker, please put them in the chat box as well. We can get to them either during the panel conversation, or I would ask that our panelists, you can visit the Q&A box yourself and also respond. I know a lot of you all are friends already, so the familiarity is already there. So we move swiftly into our panel discussion, and I just want to bring into our panel, Minister Bacchus and Dr. Stokes will be participating in this panel, but they will be joined by
Sonia Johnson.
Sorry about that. Yes, they will be joined by Ms. Sonia Johnson, Chair of the Planning and Development Committee of FIDE, the International Chess Federation, and President of the Trinidad and Tobago Chess Association. A senior corporate manager with an extensive background in financial services, strategic planning, business development, and stakeholder relations, Mrs. Johnson is a strong advocate for inclusivity and applying innovative strategies using digital tools and platforms for the growth and development of the TTCA and the sport of chess. Welcome, Sonja, to our panel. And if I may, I'd like to start things off with you to get your thoughts on what we've heard thus far from our speakers, from your fellow panelists, and how we can accelerate the digital transformation within the context of a post-pandemic economy, and of course, within the context of sport. Sonja?
Thank you so very much for that introduction. And thank you again for the speakers for that really thought-provoking presentations. You know, when I hear about digital transformation, I actually get excited. There are very few things I really get excited about, but digital transformation is one that is like near the top of the list outside of my family. Because, and when I understood that the senator was going to be here this morning, as well as our honored speaker, I said, you know what, I'm happy that we have this platform to share. As people had mentioned before, coronavirus, this whole issue of the pandemic, really, quite frankly, though there were many, many challenges that were brought, but the flip side, we were able to see many opportunities. In chess in particular, I remember when the International Chess Federation president came to us and said, here, now what it is could we do? All of a sudden, all our activities had to be shelved over the board. Candidates stopped midway while it was going on. The good thing is that the pivot happened pretty quickly. And I think it's because when you look at it in terms of transformation, a lot of times when you have institutions that have less access to resources, you realize they try and find what is the smartest way to do things. So from years back, I think chess started this whole, and I don't think we knew what we were doing then, the whole digital transformation effort, right? And it's only now, it's very contextual, it's very relevant now that we realize, hey, but we did this before. And even so I think now, given all that we've had, we have the full context now. I think now it's up to the sporting bodies. I mean, I'm fortunate to sit as a local body, as well as have the hat of a global body. We recognize we have a responsibility now to engage differently. So the whole thing about technology is one end, but then how do we now use this opportunity to really benefit all consumers, our citizens, and society? So I'll just start with that, and then we could go into further details as we progress.
Thank you very much, Sonja. And great opening. Thank you for getting us started. If I could turn to Minister Bacchus. We talked earlier throughout your presentation and in a lot of the discussions, we talked about yes, we acknowledge the gaps, but there, and as Sonia noted, there are a lot of opportunities. Can you speak to some of what you have seen as those opportunities within the context of Trinidad and Tobago and the work of your ministry, and how far are we along in that continuum?
Yeah, sure. It's interesting when you talk about opportunities because they're pretty much limitless. When we working on the transformation of anything, effectively what you're doing is you're not just changing it. I like to determine that transformation is a revolution rather than an evolution. And that's why when I put up that thing earlier and I spoke about a new way, that's really what I meant. It's really a new way. So what opportunities are there? Let's put them in a larger global context. Increased efficiency, and I want to use really broad terms, increased efficiency, which means that anything that you are trying to do, once there is applicable and fit for purpose technology involved, it should be easier. It should represent significantly lower cost to do it. And that's not just by the efficiency, it's just the inherent nature of how technology works. There should be, for all of that now, a change in the quality of life. Because if you're able to do things faster and things are more efficient, it works. It should redound to significantly less malfeasance, because digital registers are digital. It's a lot harder to steal things digitally than they are to do when you have a paper ledger and then there's a fire and all the records go away. There is the significant expansion of your audience. Sport is a really good example. Dr. Stokes has spoke at length about just take NFTs and the reach of those things. So when you talk about the possibilities that we are, so in Trinidad, on the government side, all of the ministries, divisions, and agencies are already involved in some aspect of digital transformation. And the benefit to that is, like I said, apart from those things, it means that for anyone who is trying to access services, there's a one-stop shop, there's no wrong door. We're taking the technology to the people so that part of the transformation means that you have to educate your population. So all of that is inbuilt. This digital society pillar of what we're doing is the most important.
Yeah, thank you for that. Dr. Stokes, if I could bring you in, and we already have a couple of questions for you. The question of digital currencies, I guess, also opens up the conversation to the issue of security and accountability. And as you also noted, good governance. There is a concern that digital currencies can be used to wash money, quote unquote. How do we ensure that we protect our economies in this new environment?
Right, that's a very good question. I saw some comments about that in the chat. That is a substantial part of my day job as owner and operator of a fintech. Now, we ought not to confuse ourselves. So there's a blockchain technology that allows financial transactions. Some of the financial transactions in some people's world, Bitcoin and some of these, Ethereum and some of these others, have a high degree of anonymity, which lends themselves to, when you have a ransomware person asking to be paid in Bitcoin, that's a problem for the global financial system as we try to find a way to live together, right? But for those of us who follow it closely, the US is leading the way in requiring far more disclosure and KYC on holders of accounts. All right, and there are many cases before the courts in that regard. But more importantly, right here in our region, the sand dollar, Bahamas, the work that is happening a bit in Barbados, the government of Jamaica about to issue its own, what you call it, a digital currency, a domestic digital currency. This is the same platform, So not because a tool exists and can be used for bad means that it is bad. What we must do is be very wide-eyed and clear-eyed about what it is that we're dealing with and how we engage it. We must begin by acknowledging, yes, if we just go into the Wild West, it is a problem and it doesn't ultimately serve our purposes. But there are ways that are evolving every day to manage, control, and reduce the risk of that.
Thank you. Brian, if I could bring you back in and to join the panel at this point, given your own experiences as TTOC and Commonwealth Games, what are you seeing in particular with respect to how transformation is happening and some of the issues that we are facing from a sport perspective?
I would add also the Caribbean Association and National Olympic Committees. Transformation is messy. The Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee, we have been talking about pushing for trying to get, even within the TTOC structures, digital transformation. The use of cryptocurrency, different ways to, and this is not intended in any way, to wean away the Caribbean and local sport ecosystem from this sense of entitlement and dependency on government funding. Because as Dr. Stokes elaborated, and he and I have been talking for years about collaboration, not just on bobsleigh, but his experience and how he is doing it in bobsleigh in terms of new ways of funding. As Senator Baker spoke about, and he raised a very important point of people-driven, I wondered if that is not where the huge gap is in the effort to transform the whole thing in sport. Because sports people, and I make no apologies for saying this, but not just sport people, a lot of the environment in the Caribbean, Americas, Trinidad and Tobago are very conservative. You see people acknowledging their fears about cryptocurrency and all of these different ways, but yet still they want to remain locked in a comfort zone. So my question to the panel is, what do we have to do to move people away from the talk into accepting that digital transformation failure is not an option, it's a stepping stone, and we have to make change happen in the context of, if it is the people and the culture, how do we start to do it?
Thanks, Brian. And Senator Bacchus, maybe I could kind of punt to you on that score in terms of the people aspect of it. I was very heartened to see even in your presentation, you started with the people. That was your point, that was your first point of reference. And we all know that cultural transformation is something that takes time. It is a walk, it is a marathon, it is not a sprint. Maybe you can speak to some of those things as Brian has raised it in the context of sport, but as he also correctly noted, it is a Caribbean-wide issue. It is a people issue, I should say, and not limited within those confines.
Yeah, sure. And Brian, you're absolutely right. The most difficult part of transformation is the people change. There are lots of studies about why people resist certain types of change, and you could look at that. So just to let you know, it's not unique to sports people. It's all people. You'll find this happening all over. What have we done? Well, one of the ways that you overcome that type of, and let me put it quote unquote, ignorance, is that you educate people. You start to share with them the experiences that they can join and see the vision that you have. I, like Dr. Stokes, was looking at the comments when he was coming in, and you could see some of the resistance to things like Bitcoin and so on. But and then he says blockchain, and people tie blockchain to Bitcoin, and then you go straight to the same place, ransomware, this, that. But if you use the term a distributed ledger, then you don't get the same connotation.
Yes.
You know, so the idea is to educate. You must do that. The other thing about, I don't know that this is unique to Caribbean people, but I know for sure in Trinidad and Tobago, we have a show me country. We have a show me people. If you want to get people on board, do something that works and show them. We're not that working. We're that easier about it. Yeah, that's something we could do. So one of the things that we have to do is to pick small projects that have high levels of success, high possibilities of success, because nothing is guaranteed in life. Do it in a new way, use agile methodologies to do it. And then but do it to a place that, while it is simple to do, it impacts on a fairly large audience. If you could do that successfully, you will find that people start to gravitate towards it because people love a winner. So what I'm saying is that the majority of what we have to do is about the psychology of people. It's not about the technology, it's not about anything. It's about getting into the psyche of people and finding those ways, some of which I just explained, to get them on board.
Yes, correct. You know, Senator, as you spoke, I couldn't help but think about, as you mentioned, the show me people. I remember, I couldn't help but recall the initial response, and the Trinidadians on the session will understand this. The initial response to the pod and the eventual interaction with the carnival, taste of carnival pods. So yeah, you're right. It is about show me. It is about demonstrating the win. Sonja, as the senator spoke, the psychology of people and your own experience in the federation, how you made the point, we were probably doing digital and not even realizing that we were digital when we started out. How can you describe for us how you helped or how you work towards bringing people along on that journey? You're on mute, Sonja.
Yes, I thought I unmuted you. Thank you so much for that question.
Yeah.
So, one of the preface, I think I kind of briefly mentioned it. When you're doing transformations, many times it's born out of some sort of need, right? Some sort of need. So that's the underlying. And I think what was constantly in our face in the case of chess, for example, we're not a sport that we're saying that you have this large audience or so on, like you might have American football or soccer or so on. So the question is, how do we engage this huge community, because it's millions and millions of people who play chess? How do you then engage them in a way and to keep them relevant and following, when we had the World Championship match in Dubai, it's millions of followers. I mean, huge. And so that particular need spawned a lot of innovation. So, and I think it was like in your face after a while, because that's the only way. If we wanted to see what Magnus Carlsen was playing against his challenger in the first round, we had to go online, or we will follow the people who are doing the commentaries. For example, they had hundreds of people doing commentaries. Why? Because we had a digital platform to see exactly what he was playing in real time against his opponent. So in this show me, I go down the show me because people actually saw how they could now engage. I mean, like in Trinidad, if you have a Trinidad chess chat, because we have this chess chat in Trinidad, we use our own parlance and so on in terms of how we say, oh gosh, boy, look at that, oh gosh, this man under real pressure. So I mean, you could still have your micro communities even within that. So people were able to see through these platforms. It then became a question of innovation. How do you then utilize what is available to bring the community together? So we're able to do it on the global level in terms of FIDE, the International Chess Federation. And as member federations, we were able to then piggyback on some of those things. So again, so we have 200 chess federations. So you know at least 80 to 90% were already following. So imagine that and multiplied by your local. So again, you have this huge, huge community. So that was one of the things. The other thing that you spoke about psychology, right? In my role as Planning and Development Commission Chair, one of the things I saw as an objective is to start changing some of the mindsets. People saying, okay, as a member federation, we're only going to the global federation and we have no role to play. We expect money. They need to fund us. There's no accountability. There's no anything. And I remember going to my leadership at the time and say, hey, now we need to start changing some of this. And they said, who's going to be the brave one? Right? I said, I could be the bad guy. I have no issue. But what I saw 3 years later after having the program that demanded accountability. So you see, this is the processes side of the transformation, right? In making sure there were certain processes now that the conversations, so I did a meeting in Mexico and one in Africa, the conversations are completely different. The focus is on development, is on how we could do better. So if we already now could have those kinds of conversations instead of what it is you have for me, then we could move forward. You see? So again, a lot of it takes courage. I think that word was mentioned. It takes courage, it's never been done before. It's an election year. Are you going to take the chance? So are you going to do what is right versus what is popular? But what I've found in doing what is right, it eventually became popular, right? And to me, that has worked. So that's my initial.
Yeah, thank you for that. Courage, Senator Backer spoke about trust, also very critical in that engagement. Dr. Stokes, we have a question here for you. How do you recommend novices get involved in cryptocurrency investment? Is there a software or company that you can recommend?
Can I respectfully decline to answer that and not appear to be giving investment advice?
Yes,
License.
quite understand.
That's the first thing. The second thing is I don't want to lose the point on cryptocurrency as an investment in itself, and rather focus on my bigger point, which is there are technologies out there that we can use to enable ourselves. And let me double down on that second point. I'm listening to Senator Backus, and Trinidad is the country that they take a pan and make a steel pan, they take over the world. Music take over the world. Their businesses have taken over the region. I cannot reconcile in my mind that this is a nation that would not embrace leading the way. And if that is not the case, then we ought to ask ourselves, where, and you mentioned the word a while ago, where has the breakdown of trust come from, so that I now have to say, show me. But let us say we are there. Two other things. We are showing you, we are here this morning talking about it, right? I've given concrete examples of us getting into the brave new world. I have countries in Europe calling me to hold sessions on how to do an NFT drop. Now I come from country in Jamaica. I come from St. Mary, Galena in Jamaica, right? And they're calling me to ask me, can you walk us through how we do an NFT drop? We run a risk that we learn over time to devalue ourselves. All right, and I think that is something that we need to come over. And part of that devaluation, and here's how I'm not going to be invited to any further of these talks by President Lewis. We have developed a thing in the Caribbean, and I see it in my other home country of Colombia as well, where President Lewis used the term entitlement. That's a very dangerous thing, you know. If your level of effort is boiled down to the energy you put into pursuing your Olympic committee to get the check from the solidarity check, and not into how do I identify my brand value, how do I enhance it, how do I capture it, and how do I monetize it, then we're going down the wrong road, friends. We're going down the wrong road, all right? So no, you know, no easy answers. I don't want to encourage this thing, oh, I'm going to buy crypto, oh, it was 30,000 in 2014 and it's 3.7 million. It could have been 30,000 in 2014 and 30 cents today. Don't forget that, all right? As an economist, I have to tell you, it's a risk. So let us decide what our core competencies are, what we are trying to do, and focus on that to some greater good with these things as a tool, is where I'd want to leave that.
Yeah. Dr. Stokes, somehow I suspect that you just sealed your fate for future presentations. I would suggest it is the other way around. But as we're getting up on time, I know Lovey is going to start messaging me in a little while, so I want to be respectful of everyone's time. The Senator, Dr. Stokes, you all have been with us for some time, Sonja. So let me just wrap this up and actually allow you to give some closing comments. We do have a few other questions. I think there's very specific questions to the panelists. I would invite you to go into the Q&A. I see, Senator, you've already started the ball rolling in responding, and I thank you for that. So you know, we can continue in that vein. We will be collating all of the questions. Hope I'm not putting words in Lovey's mouth, but we will take a record of all of the questions to ensure that we get them tracked. But Sonja, I'd just like to start with you, just to give a couple of closing remarks as we wrap this segment up, which has been very, very informative and very light.
Once again, I think I want to end, and I mean, this has been really an amazing experience. I'm so happy that I have had the opportunity. I think what I want to just stress for persons, I mean, you know, doing digital, because let's say doing digital, of course, digital transformation is generally hard. But the good thing is that we now have an opportunity to at least consider doing it, taking the first step. Okay, we had no other choice. Did we remember before banks used to complain, nobody's using electronic banking, online banking? Not so all of a sudden, we're doing all our transactions online, right? What it did is just we had to take the first out of necessity. So I want to challenge each of us that this is indeed, we can do this, right? We have the tools, we have the information, we could do this. And as sporting bodies and as chess, you know, we're one of this, fairly small in this particular community, that we have, because of necessity, because of the small numbers, we've been able to do quite a bit of it, how we engage registration, something as simple as online registrations. We're doing since 2017. Deposits into our account, 2, 3. So we've been doing this because out of necessity, and we realized, and when we had to do audits, for example, helps us to be online. So I'm saying this without resource, because sometimes people, Senator Backus talked about capital and having funding and so on. There are some things that you could do at very low cost that could really make a difference. And the more that you do it, the more confidence you could get, the more trust that you will have in these systems, you know, and you don't pretend that you know all. That's the first thing. Understand that you will not understand everything within this space, and that's okay. But there are many others to whom you can reach out to help you so you could be further along to benefit you, to benefit your federation, and to benefit society at large. Yes.
Thank you, Sandra. Senator Backus, give us the word.
Yeah, I wanna expressly thank TTOC, CTA for one, the opportunity to be in this panel. I found it to be quite enlightening. I learned, you know, I keep telling people you have to be continuous in your pursuit of knowledge, and it has been for me quite a learning experience. As far as digital transformation and where we're going, I think what I want people to use is to be brave. Just think about what Dr. Stokes just said. From somewhere in country Jamaica, people calling him from all over the world. Technologies are really equalizing things. Just use the example of in the early days, I was fortunate enough to have an encyclopedia set at my house. Now, this is the encyclopedia. You gain everything on your phone. So when you look at it in the context and the breadth of what technology allows, if people open their minds to it, it gives you almost limitless boundaries. It also shows how the world has shrunk. I had a website built for my ministry by local guys. They bought a template. They said, we don't like this template. We're going to build it from scratch from source code. I looked at it yesterday and I'm going to parade it around when we turn it on, I think, before the end of next week. And it is fit for purpose, extremely well built, of the highest quality. And then somebody made the comment, hey, that looking real good for something that only built local. And I was never more angry. Why is it that because something was built local, you believe it must be of a substandard quality? And if it's good, it surprises you. That is not how we work. The things that we build and create, the people that we have are second to none anywhere in the world. And until we start to get to that belief, then we're going to run into problems to innovate and create because there's no belief in what you're doing. You have to be maniacal in the pursuit of what you are doing. That's the way we have to be, and digital transformation is no different. What I can say though, is that we will get there. We will. We will get there. That is the commitment we have. And sport has, as a small enclave of people, as much as people enjoy sports, the people who play sports is a smaller amount than the people who enjoy it. And if we can get that group to believe in what it needs to do, in general, transformation will be a simple thing for you guys.
Yeah.
I believe that, and I commit the ministry, and by extension, because I could say that as a senator, the government of Trinidad and Tobago, to assisting all of the sporting fraternity in anything that they want to do relative to digital transformation. I give that. Thanks.
Thank you, Senator. On behalf of the sporting fraternity, if I may be so allowed, Mr. Lewis, to say thank you for that commitment. I know it will be deeply appreciated. Your words by Trinidad and Tobago, for Trinidad and Tobago, and the world trust and believe has stayed with me. Thank you so much. Dr. Stokes, all the way from country in Jamaica.
Well, you know, it is, I don't know how one follows up what we just heard from the senator. I think that is what we need to, that's a big takeaway from here. I don't know when our people learn to undervalue themselves. That's never been, that's not us. That wasn't us when we were slaves and immigrants. Why is it us in 2022? You know, what happened? You know, but we have to start with intention, and we have to start with leadership, which is why what we are doing here today is very important. That's why the senator's participation is very important. It has to start with not one. You don't have to be perfect. You can follow the, you know, you can learn and follow and make mistakes and grow. But what I would want to leave with is one of the things, and we have to concern ourselves with this, and I let the economists come out a little bit. There's a very real risk of a divide. We see social divides. I'm sure you're seeing it within your country in Trinidad and Tobago. One that is driven by economics, one that is driven by wealth, and the digital divide. And I saw something which I'm taking back to many governments in the region, the idea of broadband as a public good. I think that, you know, you just glance over that in half a second. I cannot tell you the importance of that, right? We need to take that forward, because the digital divide is a force multiplier in the wealth divide, the education divide, the social structure divide. It is a clear and present danger and a threat to the very structure of our local, our domestic societies, and will alienate us from the rest of the world. So I don't want this to be well, let's think about it and maybe we will do it. To not do it is detrimental.
Yes.
Must be very clear on that. Do it and fail. Be comfortable with trying it and fail. So I want to thank the TTOC, CGA, and the participation of the distinguished panel. And we need to leave here with a sense that what we have discussed here needs to be done. And it's more at stake than will I get to watch you know, somebody hit a cricket ball as if I'm in the slips. That's nice, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about being left behind as countries, as a region. That is what we're talking about. All right. So I thank you for this, and I'd encourage us to put our shoulders to the wheel and press on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stokes. And of course, thank you to the Senator and to Sonja Johnson. I really do hope that you all can continue, can stay with us to the duration as we move swiftly into the next panel. A lot of food for thought. The conversation has been riveting. And thank you all again to the participants for your continued questions. Please keep them coming. I know that we want to keep that conversation going. So I'm moving swiftly into the next panel. This thing is getting really hot now, and we don't want to lose the energy. We are joined this morning by Ms. Vashti Gayadeen. Vashti is the Chief Executive Officer of the Trinidad and Tobago Coalition of Services Industry. She's coming with more than 20 years experience in research and development, policy design, SME development, global and institutional competitiveness, and international relations. She's worked in both the public and private sectors and in academia. So welcome to you, Vashti. Mr. Mark Cape is the Manager of Sales, E-Payments and Business Development, Electronic Banking Unit of First Citizens. Mr. Cape is a career banker with extensive training and background in ICT and e-business. And Mark, I anticipate, having heard all of the discussion earlier about NFTs, cryptocurrency, the gamut, I'm sure you'll have a lot to share with us where that is concerned and where we currently are. And Mr. Kyle Maloney, entrepreneur, digital marketer, and investor. Kyle is a digital marketer and investor who, in the past decade, has co-founded 6 technology-driven companies across several sectors. So Kyle, I guess you'll also tell us if you ever get any sleep in the last 10 years. But guys, welcome. You've been hearing a lot of what Senator Backus has shared, Dr. Stokes, Mrs. Johnson, Brian Lewis has come in the conversation. We've had a lot of great questions as well from the participants. It's been really an exciting discussion. We are looking at the question of enabling now this digital economy, creating opportunities and empowering solutions. And Vashti, if I may, I'd like to kick it off with you. If you can, sort of, I think I missed one person. Yes, I did. My apologies. Zwedi Hewitt. Where is Zwedi? Am I seeing a smile, Zwedi?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm seeing a smile. My apologies. The Olympian and the Commonwealth Games medalist. How could I forget? He is the founder and CEO of LUHU, and an innovative tech startup company. Zwedi, I hope you will really kind of get into the meat of the discussion as well and share with us what your company is doing, how you are seeing this digital transformation in the context of everything that we've heard before. So now that I have the panel set and ready, I think we're ready to go now. Yes. Vashti, if I could kick it off with you. We've heard our previous panel, especially the minister, talk about where we stand today in Trinidad and Tobago. From your perspective, in terms of helping companies get export ready, because we've talked a lot about just setting the stage domestically and really getting ourselves in that space. You are coming from an export readiness perspective. Can you share with us how you assess our digital transformation imperative in that context?
Sure. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Brian, for having me here this morning. And I have to say that I have been at the TTCSI for roughly 3.5 years. And so let me give you an idea. How do you define a service? The Economist puts it the best way. The Economist magazine back in 2008 playfully defines a service as a product of economic activity that can't drop on your foot. And over the past, since the start of the pandemic, we have service providers who have been saying that the pandemic was a silver lining for them, because these are service providers who needed an enabling environment. I'm speaking specifically about a digital environment whereby they can sell their services globally. So let me just share with you what I'm speaking about. So this here is how service providers sell their services. These are what we define as are you seeing my screen?
Yes, yes we are.
These are what we call the modes of supply. Cross-border is basically how you sell your service virtually using a digital platform. And that has not been happening because we have gotten used to the in-person and the physical. But here's what. From April 2020, there are persons, and I'm speaking across the board in terms of subsectors within services. We have roughly about 45 subsectors within services. That goes from health and wellness services to sports and recreational services. And again, the challenge here was trying to for sports and recreational services professionals to see themselves as an exporter, and more importantly, to see how they can sell their service virtually using that platform. So I'm now going to stop sharing screen here and give you an idea, because I'm a researcher. So let's look at some of the opportunities. Both Minister Barker spoke about the factors that are transforming the look and feel of the sporting industry. So we have fan engagements. It takes roughly 21 days to build a habit. And we all know that it has been more than 21 days. So persons have gotten used to virtual realities. Fans have gotten used to digital platforms. The question begged to be asked is, how is Trinidad and Tobago going to prepare for these new norms? Let's look at infrastructure. Technology has provided new security and crowd control tools that can be used by security operators of large venues in multiple aspects, such as tracking, broadcasting, network systems, digital signage, building management, location-based services. The introduction of such systems aims to create a safer and more familiar environment for any type of event within stadium. Again, so let's drill deeper into stadium optimization. The aim of a smart infrastructure, we have the increase of smart infrastructure, is to be able to increase the efficiency and sustainability of buildings. In this sense, the rationale of smart stadium is to improve the operations involved in staging an event, as well as to improve stadium security, increase customer loyalty, and add value to the team's brand. TTCSI, we currently represent 56 out of 85 active service associations in the country. 2 of those associations associated with buildings and smart buildings are the Facilities Management Association and the Green Building Council. So these are opportunities for these professionals. These are new, again, we are looking at new jobs, reskilling of these professions. So again, it's in terms, and these professionals do not have opportunities just in Trinidad and Tobago, but it's regional, global opportunities. Let's look a little bit deeper into the business and events tourism. In 2019, we were engaged with TTCSI, that is, looking at the development of a cluster, specifically business and events tourism. So we did some in-depth studies into Northwest Trinidad, because that's where most of the facilities are, the infrastructure. And do you know that there are 222 registered event planners operating in Northwest Trinidad? But do you know that out of the 583 registered event planners firms in the country, no firm has gotten or won a contract for a sporting event? The top 5 global players in the sporting industries to manage events are all UK-based companies. And what is their comparative advantage? This is prior to 2020. They offer turnkey services, and they have used global mobile apps so that before a user comes to your venue, they track all your needs using technologies, and we have not been able to adapt. Health and wellness is another area in terms of where we need to use the digital platform to ensure that because we have professionals in this field, we have tracked that in terms of how many members we represent. It's over 8,000 health and wellness professionals in this industry. So I've said a lot. So how do we So going back to your original question, Nicole, I am a researcher, so therefore I need the data. And we have now, TTCSI is in the process of doing an IT audit on two sectors that have been hardest hit by the pandemic, which are personal care providers and tourism operators. So by the end of this month, we will have the results of that study. We have also done a number of economic impact assessments, and what, in terms of the digital, their digital readiness, what we have had is that where non-traditional service providers have been able to do simple things in terms of use mobile apps to book appointments, to ensure that persons come into their business, meet the health and safety protocols. So it's simple things that they have been able to adapt quickly. So more importantly, what we are in the process of doing is building a national services exporters registry or portal, which will be launched at the end of this month. It's a PSIP funded project. And we have been working with SportTT to track the economic contribution of sports in Trinidad and Tobago. And we have added an element. Again, we did not look at, when we started on this project, we didn't look at sports and recreational services, but we have added an element into this portal. And tracking this information on professionals in this industry will enable us to provide information for line ministries in terms of, if we were to look at the business of sports, we would know what exactly is needed to grow these businesses.
Yeah, thank you very much, Vashti. And I think we definitely look forward to the establishment of that national registry and how important it is. And the question that you raised about data, we seem to always be bouncing up against this little word with such a big meaning that challenges a lot of us across the place in terms of being able to capture it well. I want to turn the conversation across to the finance guy, Mr. Mark.
The finance guy.
Mark, we've kicked off by the ministers, by Senator Bacchus, continued certainly with Dr. Stokes's riveting discussion and presentation. I know we've heard a lot of it, and I know that I'm sure Kyle and Zwedi will be chomping at the bit to kind of get in on that discussion as well. But I really want to ask you to put this into context for us from the digital payment solution and transacting of goods and services perspective. At one point during the transition, the pandemic, we were doing a lot, we were almost paying for everything electronically, even doubles. So has there really been an increase in e-payments? Is it sustained? And what are we looking to next?
Right. All right. So good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me on the panel. So, and I must say, Nicole messaged me at the side, Mark, are you joining? I was like, let me join early. And I really loved everybody's conversation, especially Sonja. I love your passion and your energy. It's quite infectious. So thank you. I always like to start off my presentations with a story. Last week I traveled to the US and I left with approximately $200 US in my wallet. And I was up there for a week. And I came back to Trinidad with $200 in my wallet. I never had an opportunity to use cash. No matter where I went, I could have done everything online. I could have done, use my card. I could have tap and go. Now let's compare that to Trinidad, a typical Sunday morning. You go to the market or the market store, you pay in cash. You decide to buy doubles along the way, cash. Your daughter calls and says, Daddy, I want some coconut water. You go around the savannah and you pay for the coconuts, cash. And then you remember that you had to fill a prescription. So you pass into Superfarm, you fill the prescription, you pay with your card. So 3 out of those 4 typical transactions on a Sunday morning were still cash. But the outlook is bright. You know, I think Sanjay mentioned a lot of positive from the payment perspective did come from COVID. We definitely saw the fact that a lot of businesses had challenges and had to pivot. They had to close down. The traffic, the foot traffic coming in, you know, was much lessened. So definitely we saw a significant increase in the number of e-commerce transactions, and the bank was very pivotal in terms of allowing that. Of course, understanding the merchant needs, especially not just the corporate clients, but your SMEs, your micro SMEs, those who don't have a physical presence, those who just have a social media presence. And we basically partnered with a company called Figaro to launch what we call the EasyBiz suite of services, which basically would allow someone to come into the bank on a Monday and by the Friday to be able to accept transactions online. And the reason why I say the outlook is bright is that over the last 2 years, what we have seen is a 600% increase in the number of e-commerce merchants there are outside there, those who are willing to accept transactions online. What we also saw was a 40% increase in the actual number of e-commerce transactions online from First Citizens acquiring perspective. And what is also funny, what we also saw was a slight decrease in the number of ATM transactions, which means people are going to the ATM to take out cash less. They're basically opting to do everything online. And we're seeing that trend, as you asked, it is being sustained. And the bank is, of course, working with different stakeholders, with different payment aggregators, you know, the Visas, the MasterCards, local fintech, to continue to develop solutions that would take into consideration your small man, your doubles men, your unbanked, those kind of merchants. Because really and truly, digital transformation is really about enhancing the customer experience. Yeah. They're not going to move to a digital method or way of payment if it adds on a certain level of difficulty, right? And that is what we're working with a lot of local players, a lot of fintech, to develop these solutions to make the payment much more seamless. So yes, the outlook is bright. We are seeing increase in terms of the number. Oh, and what was also added now to the rise in terms of the e-commerce and the card not present transactions is that First Citizens, and in fact, all the banks have launched the Visa debit cards. Now, the Visa debit cards were born from security in terms of, you know, the skimming of the mag stripe. So we work with Visa to develop the chip and pin technology. But the added benefit is now that you can basically transact online in the local market using your Visa debit chip card. I literally use my debit card to pay all my utility bills online now. You don't necessarily need a credit card to now transact in the online space. So the outlook is definitely bright.
Yeah, thank you for that. Dwayne, as we hear from Mark and speaking to the outlook, as a CEO, as a leader in the tech startup space, does that translate for you? And what are some of the experiences? You know, if you can share some of your challenges, but also speak to some of the opportunities. And then I'd like to bring Kyle in on that part of the discussion in terms of the entrepreneurial experience.
Well, yeah, they're definitely, you guys can hear me, right?
Yes, we can. Loud and clear.
Yeah, there are definitely a lot of opportunities in terms of shifting towards a digital form of payments. One is massive, I mean, security, first and foremost. Mm-hmm. I mean, it reduces the chance of you getting robbed. There's a higher level of security in digital payments, typically over cash. So from a security perspective, I would definitely recommend that shift. And then also, as Mark would have said, when you travel to the US and sometimes you don't have cash, you kind of feel a bit safer. You literally don't have to worry about having cash in your pocket. You can go places where you don't know anybody and you can move around with a level of security and comfort. I think that is one of the priorities of which we need to focus on as relates to digital payments. Even on the regulatory side of things, security and safety is of utmost importance. So once that translates again from the regulatory processes to the ground, meaning more individuals having cards, that is just generally less robbery. from a regulatory perspective, once we have safe and secure protocols, we can reduce things such as fraud, money laundering. But with the advent of, with Bitcoin and these cryptocurrencies coming into play now and the level of autonomy, that brings into question, again, a level of safety into question and trust. But the value definitely outweighs the negative, I would say. In most things, there is no perfect scenario or situation, but definitely as the world is shifting towards digital payments and financial technology is definitely the way to go. And that is specifically why, we're working on what we're working on with Luhu. We're aiming to solve that problem of how people move money easily to each other, how you are able to access products and services and other resources, but also pay for it seamlessly. So that is what we're working on specifically, so we fall directly in that space of financial payment systems because we are a big advocate of it. So definitely a big recommendation of it. I would like to segue into one little discussion based off of Ms. Vashti's presentation, right? So I'll just share this with you guys. So funny, back in 2018, I created this company. It was called Spent, the sport entertainment company of Trinidad and Tobago. We actually did the contract for the NTRAs, the governing body of track and field. So we provided essentially based off of best practices and models in the US, the t-shirt cannons and all of that, we created a model where our goal was to increase spectatorship turnout, promote sports, increase stakeholder value, and return ROI typically through data. So for example, we created these campaigns where we were collecting signups and we had like these prizes and shot put throughs for like spectators. So meaning we were capturing this data, which was then leveraged as ROI to Sagicor, which is an insurance company, and that data was of value. So we created this model all the way to data capture analysis, and it was actually successful. In our pilot, we were able to successfully profit, I think, around 80K on our first venture, create value to the sport. We had happy stakeholders and we benefited. So just to say this, Ms. Vashti, you are right, because this is not an incorporated company. We just did it under another regular event company. So there was no tie to that data room of an event company getting a contract. But it's definitely a profitable industry. And based off of our know-how in the event space, it's an easy pivot into sporting events. So this is definitely a market I would recommend in terms of as we move forward back into the space of events in Trinidad and Tobago. I think we should look at sporting events before we look at wine and jam. So that is just my opinion. And there's a model that works, that provides profitability for you, profitability for the sports, but also happy stakeholders. So definitely, Ms. Vashti, I was glad that you pointed out that. And this is a full model that I would be happy to share, the entire breakdown. This entire concept that we put together. So I'll be happy to share this with anyone who's interested and want to get into the business of sport entertainment. I'll be happy to share this with you guys.
Thank you very much, Lady. And I think it's good to hear that things are happening. I think we all know, or we believe, we appreciate that things are happening. And to your point, they may not always be documented, or they may not always be at a place where the data is recorded. So that is a step that we do need to take further. Kyle, given your experience, you've worked across the region. You're involved in different aspects of innovation and bringing technology, digital transformation to the business space, the entrepreneurial space. What are some of the things that resonate with you from what you've heard already this morning, and maybe some of the opportunities that you see yourself in where we are able to take this?
Yeah. This week, the first technology company will list on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. All right, that company is called EduFocal. The founder of EduFocal also is the youngest executive to list on a stock exchange in the region. This is the first mark of the shift that is occurring, that everybody on this panel, everybody in this discussion is really hoping for to begin seeing, is that when technology companies begin going public and that interest from an investment standpoint is beginning to happen, I strongly believe we'll begin to see the proliferation of technology-driven young startup companies begin to drive the economic, become the economic driver for the region, right? And so this week is something that is a historic time that's occurring. And so across multiple different spaces, we're seeing young entrepreneurs really delving in and solving problems that we think can be scalable. And so within the region and just within Trinidad, for example, we're seeing companies like TT Rideshare becoming like a de facto taxi innovation, right? You have companies like Food Drop that becoming the food delivery sort of application. And you have tons of marketplaces that people can now order from local shops and have it delivered to them at their homes, you know? And so these companies are reaching to the stage of good product market fit. They're having thousands, like hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars in transactions annually. And what the missing piece for these companies is that level of ecosystem support, that level of support from the corporates that look to them to be partners with them, that level of support from an investor ecosystem that looks at them as a significant opportunity to be able to exit on these major stock exchanges, and that level of support from institutions to really help these companies grow and scale. And so we're at that point in time where the discussion is happening all around on how can we support the technology ecosystem within the region. And I'm happy to see the discussion being engaged from a government level, from a corporate level, and begin to, so that we begin actually seeing these companies begin to grow, thrive, and become stalwart leaders within our region.
Yeah. I wanted to kind of stay with both you and Zwedi just for a bit in terms of, as you pointed out, that connectivity with across the board, public, private, academia, institutional. From your own perspective, given a lot of what Senator Bacchus has talked about in terms of where we are headed, in terms of the transformation in the public service, and a lot of the concepts and changes, process changes that are already starting to take root, and that he and his ministry of digital transformation is pushing. How do you see that nexus happening? One, I guess, as an adjunct to that, are you already seeing the sort of wheels turning? I guess you might say you wanted it to move a little faster, as we all would, including the minister. But how, are you seeing those wheels turning, and how do you see, both from your side and from the ministry side, the governmental side, I should say, coming together? And maybe Zwedi, if you want to take a little piece of that, and then Kyle, we can jump across to you.
Yeah, go ahead, Zwedi. You're on mute.
You're on mute still.
Yeah, can you hear me? So
Nice. Yes.
well, yes, you are definitely seeing some transition in that space. Being personally connected in the technology sector in Trinidad, I do know of a couple of, I would say, startups and companies who are aiming to support and tackle areas that will work in sync very well with the public sector. So, for example, there are a couple edutech platforms. There was a successful one, as Kyle would have mentioned, in Jamaica. I know of about 2 or 3 in Trinidad and Tobago who are aiming to build solutions that can be viable options in terms of supporting digital learning that can be useful to the public sector as well. So yes, I can say that we are seeing movements towards those areas. However, I think that it can be expedited a lot if some of our public sector players are a bit more open to work with startups. So for example, there's a massive need or opportunity within the sea bridge and the air ticketing gateway systems, to where that can be improved tremendously, you know. So that is one area I see tremendous opportunity and value in creating a very streamlined solution where you can book ferry tickets, you can book a place to stay, you know. So I think that solutions like that could definitely be valuable to the public sector. So there's always opportunity, I believe, now in terms of our shift to digitization. We just kind of have to find the right pockets of opportunity to get into, and open and receptive ear. And I must commend Minister Hasselbacchus. He has been very open in terms of hearing some of these new ideas and also supporting in those, getting some of the resources they need to move forward. So I think we are moving in the right direction. is just for us again to keep progressing and keep getting the support and assistance from the public sector in terms of streamlining some of our processes, you know. So generally, yes, we are moving in the right direction, but we can definitely move a bit faster if we are open to exploring opportunities that we haven't really touched base before. So we got to think outside of the box, and that is where our entrepreneurship and creativity needs to come into work. So maybe we need to think about less events and think about more how we could use our creativity to get into those tech spaces.
Yeah, for sure. Kyle?
Yeah, I think the conversation around technology has been significantly accelerated, right? We know what has happened in the last 2 years, and we, for the first time, have a ministry of digital transformation, right? And so that's significantly commendable. That's a step in the right direction, and the work that the senator has been doing in terms of trying to canvass the opinions and thoughts of the ecosystem locally has been, I think, a right approach. Yeah, what we're seeing from a regional perspective as well are development finance organizations like the Inter-American Development Bank, the Caribbean Development Bank, and in Jamaica has the Development Bank of Jamaica, taking strong steps in the direction of asking themselves, how can we support the innovation and technology ecosystem in the region and locally so that we begin seeing a significant transformational shift. Something major occurred here in the local climate that I don't think has gotten enough notoriety that I've been speaking to them about is that the Inter-American Development Bank, together with the EU and in partnership with Kariri, is currently in an execution phase of the largest grant facility for innovation in the Caribbean that we've ever seen. It's a $10 million US grant facility put together by the EU and the IDB, and Kariri being the executing arm. And this grant facility is meant to find people, companies that are building solutions to solve problems specifically locally that can be regionally or globally scaled. And they're writing grant checks of as small as $87,000 US to as high as $570,000 US. And so there is nothing larger than this facility within the region today, and it's coming out of Trinidad. And not a lot of people know about it. They had their first call for applications, which ended actually in January, I think the second or third week in January, but there'll be multiple application processes entering for the next 2 or 3 years. So I said all that to say that there's a lot of amazing things happening within the region that is showing that we're moving in the right direction. I know that we always want to move a lot more quickly, but I think the progress is happening, and the pieces of the ecosystem are coming together in ways that they have not historically done so before.
Yeah, you're correct. And thank you for sharing that with us. I think that is a tremendous step forward. We are coming on time, but I do want to bring Mark and I want to bring Vashti back in as we sort of get to the wrap up. Mark, having heard a lot of what Zwedi and Kyle have shared in terms of their own experiences from an entrepreneurial perspective, and also some of the work that you, through First Citizens and the financial services sector, is doing to support, and the positive things that we are seeing in terms of how people are transacting. I just wanted to kind of get from you, I guess in a form of maybe a wrap or closing, what you see as, or how you see our next steps in terms of how we move.
Great, I took off the mute button. There was somebody telling me I was on mute, great. So yes, I mean, listening to Kyle and Zwedi, they're definitely in the right direction. You know, First Citizens really has a focus on digital transformation. And just a point, you know, we do work with a lot of local fintech as well. From a bank perspective, you know, just the other day we had a project and we sent out an RFP, and there was a local and a foreign clients both providing the same support. And I must say that the local vendor, I mean, blew the international one out of the park, and they really provided some fantastic support. I mean, it was one of the most responsive vendors that I have dealt with.
That's what we love to hear, Mark. That's what we love to
hear. Yeah.
That's what we love to hear. That's what we love to hear.
They would, yeah, they definitely. I mean, I really, and I built a relationship with them, and I would basically recommend them to anybody wanting to work with them. Right?
You're allowed to say who they are, so you can get.
No, not yet. No, I can't say. Sorry.
All
I'll message you on the side. Don't worry.
right. Cool.
But and definitely, from a not a bank perspective, from a personal perspective, I believe that the government over many years has spent so much money investing in our education and GATE and all these programs, and we have a lot of young, bright entrepreneurs out there who have the knowledge and the expertise and the ideas. And they really need to be given a chance. I think it should be a plus. Somebody had made a comment earlier on where you think that if it's foreign, it's better, and that is absolutely not the case. We live in a globalization perspective where they have people in Trinidad and Tobago have the same access to the same resources, the same education that anybody would around the country. For our next steps, the bank is doing a lot of exciting things. Within the next day, I'm not allowed to say definitely, just for confidentiality, but definitely what I can say is that the solutions would enable transacting. They would be inclusive, meaning that not for those who have a bank account. We're going to be serving a lot of people who, the underbanked and the unbanked, who would like to transact in that digital space. And definitely we're going to be doing a lot of exciting things over the next year. The outlook is really bright. And hopefully when we have this presentation again next year, if I'm lucky enough to be invited, Kyle and I and Zoe will be speaking about all the fantastic things that have happened over the year. Right?
Yes, thank you. As I listen to all of you, Dr. Stokes asked a question earlier in his presentation: when did we learn to undervalue ourselves? And I thought it was a very profound point. And I think listening to you, to all of you, it really gives a sense of positivity. And I hope Dr. Stokes will agree with me that we are not entirely there yet, and that we are in fact quite valuing ourselves. It's great to hear that our local organizations can compete on a level playing field as well. Vashti, maybe a closing statement from you, as you were the opening, you sort of opened debating for us on this one, and I just want to take it back to you, given your sharing in terms of what we have been seeing in the services space.
Sure. So I would just like to go back on Kyle's point about the grants, and that has not been my experience. In fact, those grants, the evaluation has been extended by both Cariri and IDB simply because of how much applications they have received. And we have had where service providers who are not registered and compliant, given the how much grants they are seeing available to them, they are getting organized. So that is a step in the right direction. Now, what I would like to close with is on a positive note in terms of what really is happening, and we may not be speaking about it nationally, but we have seen a movement towards creating more exporters and creating an export platform. Exporting is not an easy task. So I'll go back to Caribbean Export Development Agency back in 2008, developed a program with EU funding called Services Go Global. And within the last 2 years, again, using the technology, we have TTCSI as the lead CSI in the region, have been able to train more than 250 persons. And here's what is happening, whereby we now have WhatsApp groups with service providers from 7 CARICOM countries, where they are interacting and talking to each other. If somebody from Trinidad and Tobago wants to enter the Belizean market, they are making contacts there. They are doing the market intelligence. So we want to build on that platform, and we are seeing CARICOM in the integration as as how we have never seen before. So I would really, we need an enabling environment across the region to support these service providers and firms, specifically in terms of sports and recreational services, because they do not see themselves as an exporter.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And thanks to all of you. I think it's a great note for us to end on in terms of this panel, in looking at considering all of the positive things that we are seeing coming out from the entrepreneurial space, the support that is happening with the through financial services, as well as the focus that we are placing on data gathering, in enabling our services sector in particular, but businesses across the board to be ready for that next step, ultimately, which is export, getting them ready for export. This has been, and so I want to really thank Ms. Vashti Gayadeen. I want to thank Mark Cape, Kyle Maloney, and Zwedi Hewitt for their contributions to this final panel, and overall to all of our panelists and contributors, Dr. Stokes, Senator Backus, Sonia Johnston, and even Minister Mitchell, who would have had to leave us a little earlier. We've had a tremendous morning of conversation and discussion in a space that, while not all of us may be entirely comfortable, I think that the contributions and sharing have certainly brought out a lot of key issues for us as a region, as countries in the region, and as a region on the whole. It's interesting that, yes, this conversation is in the context of sport and sport development and sport industry. And TTOC it has always been TTOC's focus. But when you step back a little bit, this is really about, this is ultimately a conversation about how we move the Caribbean further, how we as a Caribbean people really place our stamp on things. Dr. Stokes talked about the innovation and invention of the steel ban and other innovations that have come from the steel pan and other innovations that have come from this region. It really is about us setting our place in the world and really contributing in a significant manner. We've heard a lot this morning. We've heard the trust, courage, determination, innovation are just some of the words, but we've also heard about how we are taking those key steps. In some cases, it is a thoughtful journey for all of us. The people side of digital transformation has certainly not been lost on any of the speakers, on any of the panelists, and that is critical. But there is also the process and the system side and the governance side, as one of our speakers pointed. So there is a lot for us to learn still and to continue learning, but there's a lot that has been happening. And as I think Mr. Lewis and other speakers have noted, we do have to just step into that space and embrace, be brave and step into that space and embrace it. So I hope that, like me, you've really enjoyed and embraced that conversation. I wanna, as we wrap up the panel discussions, I wanna really introduce at this stage the Vice President of the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee and the Commonwealth Games Association, Ms. Diane Henderson. I know I've been watching Diane in the video, and I know she's been taking copious notes of all that has been discussed and taking place. So I would really like to bring her in to really close us off this morning and to share some of her own thoughts for what she has seen. Diane?
Yes, thank you. Just want to write, oh my word, for me as well, I must say that this was an eye-opener. And if there was any forum that the sporting public or just the public on its own could capture the essence of digital transformation, this was it. Because if you didn't know, if you didn't have an idea, if you still don't know, the whole idea is that the information transferred, we can now take that and ignite that plan, that schedule, what we want to do to get there. As Nicole has just said, you know, there's so much, and you did review much of it. There's so much that has been said from the senators in terms of the processes, the systems, as well as, you know, I mean, the different currencies. And one thing is, you know, the governance that's so important of aligning your governments with, or while you're doing your, initiating your plans, go alongside one time, you know, don't leave one aspect behind, but put it in place, develop those policies. What I thought was extremely important too is the leadership. Somebody has to lead this in your groups, in your, you know, so we really do need to take the helm and go off. Brian, if you're there with us still listening, but I think that this calls for another workshop soon because there's so much information. We have to break it down and look at certain parts, maybe more specific to the sporting environment, you know, because there's so much to learn and to still flesh out, you know. But a couple of things that were definitely highlighted was, you know, do it and fail. Dr. Stokes said, do it and fail. Failure is not an option. You know, as Senator Backus also said, failure is not an option, do it and fail. So we need to realize that we have to jump in. We can't be studying whether or not we are on the right footing or we are going to, something will go bad. There are some things that could go wrong, but at the same time, we have got to just take the chance, and there are many things that will go right, because that's the way forward. You know, we cannot, there's no no. There's only a possibility of going forward. So I'm not going to keep you, and the psychology of the people. Yes, it's we the people, and definitely, Mark, I think you said it, young entrepreneurs. I watch that panel and I tell myself, oh wow, these are all young, bright, enthusiastic people, positive and raring to go on. These are the minds that we need to lead us in the future. Yes, so thank you so much, everyone, for taking up the panel opportunities, as well as our viewers. Thank you so much for coming on today and making it worthwhile for you and for those who we would share it to as well, because, you know, this is what we must not keep the information for ourselves, but just talk to somebody or somebodies today about what you heard this morning and share that, make that conversation. Okay, so thank you again for being here and for all the panelists, and regrets to those who did not make it. Thank you again, Nicole.
Thank you very much, Diane. So we close it off. Folks, thank you for participating. Really appreciate it. And yeah, as the Vice President has spoken, we'll be here for part 2.